All right. Well, we're sitting here with Frank and Roman. So you guys have a podcast, and
We do.
Tell us about it real quick.
We got our podcast started just over a year now.
March 23.
Yeah.
Nice.
Al came to it where just getting together with friends. We go camping. And what do you do at camp? You sit around the fire, drink beer.
Yeah.
You know, shoot shit with friends, laugh your ass
Tell a
off.
bunch of lies. Nothing's ever going to fucking happen.
Yeah. And then we just, I don't know how the conversation started, or maybe someone recognized, like, oh, you guys should do a podcast or something like that. So I was getting ready to I'm in real estate and construction business, and I was getting ready to do a podcast related to my work. Mm-hmm. But, you know, lack of motivation, not enough time, you're busy, right? You're concentrating on other things.
This is like 2 years later after we talked about.
Yeah. And then so I'm
Yeah.
getting all this stuff ready. So I bought all the like startup equipment, and then one day Frank calls me. He's like, "Hey, remember we talked about a podcast?" And I was like, "I'm on my way."
Yeah, we already had this stuff. It was like that
everything
day.
I had.
Nice.
I just needed another person to get going, you know. And then I was like, "Let's just do the podcast. We love beer, so let's get into craft beer." A good friend of mine, Carlos, got me into craft beer, and Frank's been introduced to craft beer before me, so I enjoy it. And I have this drive to support local businesses and like to, you know, try as much as possible support U.S. made products and things like that. So I was like, how can we like incorporate all of this together?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
So-
just beer. It's anything.
Yeah, so we just started
minority owned,
getting
everything,
into
veteran.
craft beer and drinking and talking about it, and then just getting into discussing businesses, current events, and things like that, just to have fun. I mean, you know, and then we were like, let's mix things up a little bit. You know, it's fun when you have all these friends around campfire, right? Why don't we have friends around the table with beer and just have conversations, have a good time?
Yeah.
And in the same time, use our platform to give other businesses exposure or voice to like hear stories. I love hearing stories. Like everybody's story is unique. You know, some people get to where they are through struggle, some don't, and storytelling is just exciting for me. When I was a kid, I used to listen to my grandpa telling me like stories when he was in the military, and it's just that's something I enjoy.
Yeah.
And so that's how we kind of started our podcast, and just over a year now.
That's cool.
We bust up, we laugh. I mean, it's really not much different probably than what you do.
Right.
I mean, you know, a little different sort of delivery, I suppose, but there's two of us.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just fun and it's interesting and it's, you know, a time filler. I mean, it really turned into a time sucker now. I mean, it's way more than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Have you noticed? Have you gotten to a point where it's like, oh shit, this is a thing now, and we have to like stay on top of it?
Yeah, I think we're kind of there now. I mean, it's the amount of involvement you have to have with a social media presence to you know, you got to post and continue to post and so that type of stuff and the content, creating the pictures and all these. I mean, we do a weekly podcast, and that's by design. We're trying to be consistent so people can sort of depend on, you know, our releases and things like that. So it's a job.
Yeah.
It's a non-paying job.
This was decided in the beginning, like, okay, if we're going to do this, I don't want to half-ass it, okay? Like, let's be consistent. We're going to suck at first.
Yeah.
But that's the goal. Like a friend of mine said, it's okay if you're not good at the beginning, but people like to see how you progress and you do better. They appreciate that. So
That's interesting.
you know, but now we're doing better. And but one thing we stuck to is consistency. So we make sure our episodes out every week, 4 a.m, Mondays.
Oh, really?
You know,
Is that the time?
Even if I had to stay up at that time, there were times where I would stay up 2, 3 in the morning and finish editing audio files to get it up there because I said we're going to stick to 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Monday. That's when episodes come out, because I'm just thinking of those early birds. You know, my brother is in the trucking business, so sometimes he's on the road early.
Yeah.
When they're driving around, they want to listen to something. So if we can get that episode out there and get it in their ears, and
For
hopefully
sure.
they find it, you know, entertaining.
Yeah. Man. Yeah. So do you guys record every week and then publish, or do you kind of bank them? I'm curious, just like from your standpoint, how you do things.
We started every week, but then we noticed how it was difficult.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, we need to bank at least 1 or 2 episodes to be ahead.
Yeah.
Unless there's like an event or something. So if we had a couple recorded, and then there was like the World Beer Cup event, right? So like, okay, that just released all the results, and let's cover that. So we'll jump that one ahead of the other episodes.
Nice.
Just because the results just came out, let's cover it. And then it'll go back to whatever.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a big bank. I mean, we're not.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if we're one ahead now. I think we're current.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we'll be like 2-3 ahead, then we're like current, and then we got to catch up again. We got, families, work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I love the SNL skit that they did with what the hell is that comedian's name? But it was like the white guy podcast set from Fisher Price. Did you ever see that?
No.
It was like he was. It starts with him getting fired from his job for like racist things that he said, and then his coworkers get him this Fisher Price My Podcast set, and it's like a whole recording thing, mic and headphones, and he's like just on there saying all of the like worst possible things, and his wife comes down. She's like, what are you doing? I thought you were to end your podcast. And he was like, it's Fisher Price. It's not going anywhere. And then she looks off to the side and he's live streaming everything. And there's like 1 million people watching it,
We watched the black guy, white guy jokes. The ones on
on SNL.
At SNL,
Oh, okay,
it's the white guy will give the black guy a joke to say. And I forget who those two people are, but it's funny and shit.
Michael Che and Colin something, I think.
Yeah.
Colin Jost.
That's great to watch.
Yeah, those are pretty funny.
Yeah, they put each other in these uncomfortable situations.
I love when Colin Jost has to tell jokes about his wife because he's married to Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Lucky guy.
What do you? Yeah, very lucky guy. Have you guys used AI for anything on the podcast yet?
Yes, our first introduction to AI was when I started designing a logo, and I was struggling. I don't have like computer designing skills, So I play with computers. I do some stuff, but I was like, oh, I know AI. Like some people use AI for stuff, so. And I know a little bit Photoshop too. So I use an AI. Oh man, I probably created 10 different free accounts because I was running out of how many times you could generate images and things like that.
Yeah.
So finally got one, and I was like, okay, I think I can work with this. Then I took that image, and then I photoshopped. In the Photoshop, I did all the editing there, like color correction, changing things, making things look a little bit like us. Obviously, if you look at our logo, I don't have hair like the logo, so we have to change those things down the road. But it built the brand, so I think we just, I don't know, maybe leave it.
Yeah.
And I've used AI maybe, when else? I think
you
that's
do those
it.
that generate for the seasonal videos you were doing?
We did some like funny episode arts. So
Cool.
anything we're talking about that day, like if we talked about getting drunk and ending up on a floater down the river, So I'll generate like a drunk guy on a floating tube floating down the river. And then
Or the sumo vagina, right?
something, we come up with the weird things. And then even AI is like, are you sure you want me to create this?
That's pretty funny.
But that a little bit, so not so much. We do talk about it a lot on the episode because I geek out.
Yeah, I know it really is. It's amazing how quickly I use ChatGPT multiple times a day for stuff, whether it's just like proofreading something or I've tried using it for images and whatnot, but it just doesn't work that well. I was trying to use it for. I mean, Tim at Buried Acorn, we use ChatGPT for just about anything and everything when it comes to his graphics, and he doesn't care at all that it looks like crap. That's kind of like the funny part about Tim. Is that he'll use the dumbest possible things for with AI images, and then he'll just post it, and he doesn't care. Which, by the way, if you're listening, I mentioned Buried Acorn 3 times, so you have to drink 3 times now.
Oh,
Speaking of drink, can we do that?
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah,
he said Buried Acorn 3 times, so you have to take
yeah.
it.
So you gotta
So
drink.
you and Tim close together, guys?
Yeah, so Tim and I, cheers. Tim and I met just through Eat Local like a couple of years, maybe I think just before the pandemic, and then during the pandemic, I would order beer for delivery from him all the time because he would, like a lot of the other breweries were doing delivery during, the early days of COVID. And so, but Tim you'd buy like 2 4-packs and he'd bring you like a half a case of low fills to go with it.
Nice.
And so we were friends on Facebook. During the pandemic, our house got robbed while we were away.
Oh, geez.
And like somebody legit broke into the house in broad daylight and stole a bunch of stuff. And I posted something on Facebook about it. And Tim showed up at my house like 15 minutes later with a security camera. He was like, here, use this, And so then me, I don't know if do you guys ever see the Will It Ferment episodes that we did? Thanks, construction workers. They're doing construction upstairs, so the guys had to come down and look at something. So Tim had this idea. Tim and Keith from Woodland Farm Brewery out in Marcy had this idea for the show called Will It Ferment, where they would take random shit from around the house. The concept was if there was a pandemic and you couldn't, like all alcohol and everything was gone and you had to get drunk, could you take random stuff from around the house and turn it into alcohol to get hammered? So that was the premise. And so they did everything from leftover Christmas trees to around Easter, they took their kids to the dollar store to buy candy and then had their kids make alcohol out of the candy. He did like the bagged cheesy rice, like any of these disgusting things. I forget, but we filmed like 8 or 9 episodes of it. So Tim reached out and was like, hey, we've got this fun idea. Why don't you come film it, and help us out with the first one. So so we filmed like 8 or 9 episodes, and then me, Tim, and Keith, just from a group chat from there, I've been best friends for like the last 3 years.
Nice.
Talk all the freaking time, and
That's interesting because Tim's probably that way also with his beers. I mean, he's creative and kind of comes up with things. But I watched your episode with him and Keith, and you are, I think you're going to start something with Keith here, right?
Yeah. So we're doing a thing called Thirsty Neighbor. So it's really just to start, just going to be social media accounts, but just focused on alcohol. I've tried to do cocktail videos for Meat Local for the past like 1.5, 2 years, and they just really never took off. I've never been like a big alcohol expert in terms of like cocktail expert, so I didn't want to do them for a while. I hired a girl. She made a what's my favorite tropical drink? What the fuck is the name of it? Mai Tai.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
She made a Mai Tai. So I got a sponsorship from Barfly, which they just like sent me like $300 for the like mixology stuff, and so we tagged them on this video on Instagram, and they accepted it as a collaborator, right? It shows up on their feed.
Yeah.
And they've got Barfly's got they had a bigger Instagram following than I did at the time. So it shows up on there. And they're a respectable mixology company, right? Bar supply company, like professionals, okay? And so the video shows up on their feed. And I didn't know it at the time. She made this drink so incredibly terribly. It was like the worst possible way to make a Mai Tai that Barfly accepted it and shared it, obviously without having watched it. And I'm talking hundreds of comments on their page of this person should get shot. This is the worst way to make this drink. Trader Vic, who's like the father of, tiki cocktails. Trader Vic would be rolling over in his grave if he saw this. Who is just absolutely ripping her apart. And so much so that Barfly deleted the video. I was like,
I was going to say, you're getting attention. It doesn't matter. What do you care? Like if you get eyes on the ad.
Right.
It could be like, well, we're going to buy it and show you how to do it right.
Right.
Yeah, so that's how we we've talked a little bit on Instagram, communicated back and forth. That's how we got sort of here is when Barry Acorn got broken into, and then you kind of threw out that message, and which is some really good, I guess, sort of influence to be able to have people go there and help him out with that, and we sort of try to arrange after that at this point.
That's cool.
Yeah, we couldn't go together, so we went separately.
Oh, nice.
Actually, I went there for lunch, ran into Tim. There was plywood on the door.
Yeah,
and because of my construction background, I was like, I got somebody you can get glass from. He's like, somebody's coming to look at it. I was like, well, here, take this guy's name.
Yeah.
And it ended up working out. So they came out, I think, 10 days later and put new glass in. And
That's
I
cool.
saw him yesterday. Actually, I just missed you. He was like, Anthony was just here.
Oh, nice.
And I said, everything worked out with the glass company. He's like, yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
good. Thank you. And so that's part of it too, right? Like it's a community. Like we need to all help each other out.
Yeah. There's a Facebook group in Cincinnati that's called Chowdown. Buddy of mine started it. He's the one that gave me the idea for the Eat Local card. Started around the same time I did, but it's a Facebook group, and they've got like over 300,000 members in it now.
Oh, Jesus.
But it's positive only. You can't post anything negative. If somebody says, you can't even comment negative, and restaurants can't self-promote. So it's just this really like uplifting, hey, I had a great experience at this restaurant group. And like 3 summers ago, I think it was 2 or 3 summers ago, they did this thing. Every month they would pick a different restaurant, and they would, as many people as saw it and would, they would all go there. Nice. And restaurant owners were commenting like, holy shit, this like they'd get 10,000 members to show up there in a month.
Wow.
And buy something. And there was this one, like, I forget if he was from Pakistan or India or where he was from, but he had like this bodega ice cream shop, and that was one of the places they went to one month, and he was like, I just paid off all my debt at the end of the month. I just got the car I needed. Like,
that's amazing.
Made
like,
so much money from it.
It took, it just takes a lot of people, and all they got to do is spend $4 or $5 on the ice cream,
right?
Or, say $10, right? Yeah. What's $10?
Exactly.
And
Half
look how it dramatically helps. Yeah. Look at the impact for someone like that.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what I tried doing that. I did that with like 2 videos on our Instagram account. And like this, I don't know if the people were hurting. I was just like, hey, it'd be cool if, we went here. And this one, I ran into this guy, and it was a Moray Pizza in Liverpool. And I ran into this guy at an event, and he was like, hey, I need to talk to you for a second. I was like, yeah, what's up? He was like, you fucking suck. I was like, oh, shit. I was like, what did I do?
Oh, man, did you see my old college tapes? What do you got hold of?
He was like, I used to go to a Moray, or I go to a Moray Pizza every Friday. It was never more than a 30-minute wait. Now it's like 2.5 hours to get a pizza, And so that kind of stuff is really cool, I think, I mean, Adam Weitzman and Mike Flynn were at Buried Acorn the Sunday after I made that video. Those 2 guys never, but I don't think they drink. Adam's a vegan. Like, what the fuck are they doing at Buried Acorn on a Sunday? But I walked in, and they were sitting there. I was like, hey, what's up, guys? And, they saw the video and stopped in. So that kind of stuff, I think, with social, with podcasting, content creators, like that kind of stuff is really cool, to do. So,
and you do this with a lot of people. I mean, it's not just food. I mean, I see you've had historians, you've had journalists, you've had, Chad Terranoni from Hummingbird Heating and Cooling. So,
man.
And the Miller guy, I think I commented on there. There's like, his last name. There's like Miller shit all over the place. But it's, it's not just limited to food. So I know you got this kind of, reach that's, your tentacles are everywhere there.
I thought your podcast was like about beer exclusively until I started listening to the episodes. And I was like, oh, it says Brews and Banter. And so then I realized, so what's your all's process for an episode? Did you sit down and talk about whatever is interesting to you at the time?
We
start with a beer to break the ice.
So we got a beer vault.
Yeah. Right.
Refrigerator. And we just pick a brewery for that day. Like, what are you in the mood for? What kind of beer style? Oh, I had too many IPAs the other day. Let's go with something light. So, anyways, we pick a beer. We look up about the brewery online. So we open it, we taste it, we give our feedback, what we think about it. We talk about the brewery. Usually like to hear some cool history behind it.
Yeah. That's like the first 5 minutes, maybe.
That's 5-10 minutes, and then we drink the beer throughout the episode as we chat about current events, some company that we come across. Like, I've mentioned earlier, we like to support local and U.S. made products, and local businesses. So if we don't have sponsors, so whatever I bought that day or previously and tested out and I like it, we'll talk about it. We don't tell each other what we're gonna talk about, so it's more organic. There's a
Yeah, so everything's
surprise.
unscripted.
That's
There's no-
really
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't know what he's gonna talk about. He doesn't know what I'm gonna talk about, and it's
And
amazing.
sometimes we don't even know when we get there. We just start talking.
Yeah.
You know?
and
Like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The chemistry is very interesting because I'll have some talking points, right? And let's say I want to talk about a flood, and he has no idea that I was going to talk about a flood. And he was like, "Man, I pissed so much I flooded my bathroom." I was like, "Speaking of floods,"
Yeah.
I'm like, "How did that even happen? Like,
Yeah,
what's happening that like it's sinking like that?" So that's
sinking.
That's see what I did there?
Yeah.
So that's funny, and that's like how our episode goes. And then we started doing this podcast with friends.
Yeah.
And that I mentioned earlier, you know, we wanted to invite more people over, whether it's going to be remote or they come into the studio. And
Which at some point, hopefully, will be you.
yeah,
Yeah, that'd be fun.
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
And then same thing we just talk about. We'll bring up, you know, and just you get another perspective, right? Another
Yeah.
person's thought about it, and we'll talk about Tesla, and I like to talk about like batteries and pollution and shit like that.
Yeah.
I like to say dirty shit. And
Then we do dirty,
funny stuff.
uncomfortable jokes.
We have pound round. I don't know if you've seen a pound round. So pound round is just how many beers you could drink in an hour.
Jesus
and whoever
Christ.
wins, we got this little ring.
It's like
So
this.
it's like a championship
It's like a
gaudy
Super
ring off
Bowl,
a trophy
Super Bowl
smack or
ring
something.
with
Yeah.
our logo on it.
What's
and-
the record?
I think I had like 6 or something.
Yeah, we stay
Craft
between
beers?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
But
4
then-
to 6, and then
But then you get like U Daddies. I don't know if you know. It's a U Daddy. So U Daddy is just basically you win 5 U Daddies if you win the pound round, and then you know. So it's something if I say if you know, Anthony, what do you think? Who do you think is the sexiest man in the world?
Yeah.
You'd have to say you, Daddy. So the answer's got to be you, Daddy.
so whoever wins gets 5 U daddies to cash in later.
That's hilarious.
And you never know too, like when he's gonna.
I mean, there's a lot of dirty jokes and swearing. We talk about
Yeah.
family, all these things. It's just kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
go with the flow, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but we like to keep that organic, that element of surprise, kind of like, because if I know what he's gonna talk about, my response is not gonna be
Right.
organic. I get, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know.
I've had to do those podcasts before where it's, like going in and here's the questions and here's what the answer is going
Right.
to be.
Okay.
Those aren't very fun.
Oh, they give you the answers?
Yeah. So like I'll
Oh.
like I'll sit down and I've only had to do a couple of them where they're like, hey, so here's here's what we want you to talk about on the podcast, and can you come up with questions around those subjects? And then I'll come up with a question. So like, all right, here's what the response is going to be. So that way you know how to respond to that. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ.
That's
you know?
that's very cookie cutter, right?
Yeah. I used to try and prep pretty seriously for every episode. And then like one episode, it was just fucking awful. I listened back to that one and I was just like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. Going into the podcast right after that, I was busy that week. I didn't prep anything. Sat down with the guest who I kind of knew, and we were just drinking bourbon and just talked about whatever the fuck we wanted to, and it was great.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm never preparing anything ever again. There's a couple, like Stephen Page, I had him on. I prepped a lot, like
From like Bare Naked Ladies?
yeah, because he lives in like the Manlius area. And he followed Eat Local, so on Instagram, and I was just like, send him a DM. Any chance you'd come on the podcast? He was like, yeah, sure. I was like, holy fuck.
Yep.
So I did a lot of research of like the like how Bare Naked Ladies got started and their history, and so because I was genuinely curious about and even his take on music today. So I researched a lot for that. We did a series of episodes at the Palace Theater a couple Decembers ago. And I had like John Stage on as one guest, Adam Weitzman as one guest, the Fiacchi family from Amano or Abioko now, and some others. And so I did a lot of research going into that one. But even that one, I was still like, I had the women from Possibilities on, and I said like 30 times, I love your restaurant. And like at 20 minutes, I felt like such a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
I felt so fucking
Now they
stupid.
got this list of who not to allow in. Yeah, number one.
I just kept saying, you guys have such a great restaurant. I know I've said that 1,000 times, but you guys have such a great
Yeah, yeah. If it's true, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I think the only time we prep for an episode is when we'll have a guest. Because we had this one guest who wanted to discuss about a pandemic of fentanyl. So we're like, okay, we got to research a little bit.
Yeah.
And we actually, she reached out to us because she listened to one of our episodes and we mentioned that pandemic, fentanyl. And she wanted to get on our platform. So she reached out and she's like, would you guys talk about it? Sure.
That's cool.
And so
we don't know fuck all about it, So like, you're going to largely drive this, so go ahead.
Yeah, like, I read something on the news and I find it interesting. I'm like, I'll bring this up in the episode.
Yeah.
And so she heard it, reached out. Great lady. She does a lot of good for kids too who have suffered or, something happened in the family. Or we have potentially
we had
a
law
manager
firm,
who like brought this Korean K-pop band.
That's cool.
Like they're doing great now, so she might be our guest soon. And
we did an entertainment lawyer who's worked on American Idol and all these TV shows. Just
that's awesome.
Stuff that people reach out. I mean, we're not soliciting them, and we have solicited a lot of people.
Yeah.
But these people that Roman specifically mentioned came to us.
That's awesome.
And they just want to be on. And I mean, I think there's a little bit of comedy we do, a little bit of fucked up stuff and like jokes and games and stuff. But we don't want it to be just this monotonous sort of
right.
You're listening to that guy like Ben Stein from Dry Eyes, that guy. We don't want it just to be that, but like, we want to be informative, but we also want to be accurate and all inclusive.
Yeah, that's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, some of my favorite episodes are the ones with Tim and Keith. The few. I mean, we did a Christmas episode, and Tim made me sit on his lap dressed as Santa Claus. So,
we interviewed Tim. We have,
you did?
Yeah, we got he's on our Patreon, the brewery tour in the audio.
He's
just funnier than fuck, really.
We have like a remote setup, so we pack up all of our Pelican cases. Go out, lights, cameras, everything. Microphones, and what we do, we like to an interview, like a sit-down interview, and then a brewery tour. So they're like two different videos. And we put them on Patreon for like 6 months or so, just a little bit of revenue. I mean, you know how expensive this is. We're not making money off of this. This is just a hobby. We enjoy it. We feel like we, in a way, kind of give back to community a little bit, and would like to do more if we can. But it's interesting stories. Like I mentioned, I said earlier, I like to hear people's stories.
Yeah.
And what a great way to sit down with somebody, have a beer or whatever, and just tell us your story. You know, and let's put it out there for the world to hear. And
for sure,
you maybe get more loyal customers, or you might be part of this community where like, wow, they struggle with that. We struggle too. I'm going to help them out next time. And I think it's a great feeling to do that.
But meeting people is cool.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, if you don't do it, I mean, we didn't really. I mean, you meet small talk, you get some things here, but like, you meet some people, and you can actually start a relationship, and it's really beneficial just to have. I mean, not anything you get out of that relationship outside of just the conversation, but maybe a friendship, and then that turns into something else, and like and not even monetarily. I'm just talking about like now you just have someone else you can call a friend. Yeah. That's pretty cool to us,
I pretty much I listen to like Rogan exclusively. Shocker. I know that's surprising to you, but that a middle-aged white man only listens to Joe Rogan.
Like his last like 5 episodes have all been comedians.
Yeah, which I love.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Tim Dillon. I watch Kill Tony every Monday night, that kind of stuff. I think that's hilarious. Because for the past few years, is somebody like I've been trying to be ultra cautious about what I say, making sure I don't like get canceled. Not that I think I would, but that I don't offend anybody. And then now, especially, I think obviously with intent, you can't go out there and be a racist and be like, oh, it's for comedy when you're not a comedian, right? But more and more, I think culture is kind of shifting a bit, and I think comedians help that. Because it's like, I don't know, I think a lot of people were just like afraid of, like, oh shit, I have to accept everything and not question it. You know, like somebody can come out and say, I'm a dog, and it's okay because we want to be accepting. But sometimes you can acknowledge it's weird that somebody wants to be a dog all of a sudden, So I like the comedy stuff for that, especially Tim Dillon and some of the crazy shit that he says purposefully for comedy, but just funny, the shit that he says. Anyway, so I pretty much only listen to Rogan, but I like Bernie Sanders. I never in a million years would have voted for Bernie Sanders. I listen to Bernie Sanders on the Rogan podcast. I'm like, this makes sense.
Yep.
I can see myself voting for this person now. Like, now I understand you're not just a socialist pig, you know, like, you know.
Well, and the 4-day work week is what I'm kind of hoping passes. That gives us 2 more days to not get paid doing this.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, he mentioned this on his podcast. He said it's hard to give somebody a platform on a traditional network TV to really express everything, all their views, what they're planning on. So when you have ads that are paying money, they're like, I need to be there. Mm-hmm. So if you're in the debate, 2, 3, 4 people, you at most going to have 30 minutes to talk.
Yeah.
So things that you heard with Bernie Sanders say in 2, 3 hours interview that probably didn't even cover half of, right? Like you have to cut it somewhere at some point. But what other national television station that gives a politician a platform for 2, 3 hours to discuss their issues?
Right.
There isn't.
Yeah.
So they have to use things that are catchy, what algorithm tells them to say, and it's scripted. They have to say specific things to grab attention, and even if it's a negative on purpose, just to stir things up. Yeah. And I agree with you.
Yeah. It's funny, though, how much I take the things I hear on Rogan's podcast as fuel in arguments against my wife. Yep. It's like, hey, did you hear this? Yeah. Even I go into that, and I'm like, I heard this guy on Rogan for 3 hours talk about it. It's fucking true. Right.
Yeah. So there's just a little smoldering little kind of spark there, and you're just splashing the fuel on it to see what happens from there.
I feel like
only you can prevent forest fires.
I feel like if I start a conversation with my wife, I heard this guy on Joe Rogan. Yeah. I think her mind automatically just goes like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But he doesn't care about he'll share his thoughts. He doesn't hold back. He doesn't care about being canceled or
Rogan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's all factual. I mean, I understand what he's saying, and he has a ton of guests. I mean, obviously for good reason. He's the biggest guy, and you get to do that.
Yeah.
So it gives us something to shoot for. But
yeah, it really is. It's interesting that some like. I mean, who knows what the numbers are, but it's millions of people that tune in every single episode for his podcast. And it's amazing, A, that there's that many people that are listening and watching his stuff, and then B, how much that can affect things, you know, how much that can affect culture or sales of a business or voting, It's
I don't know how
long
much
episodes. I mean, really.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it is true, but I mean, he said they've pulled their numbers, and his viewership, listeners, is higher than CNN.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be to a certain extent. I mean, some of his YouTube videos alone, now that he's back on YouTube, get multiple millions of views. I mean, what's he getting on Spotify, Right. I mean, your YouTube numbers are always going to be lower than your audio numbers. So thank you.
We interviewed these guys.
Big Ditch?
Big Ditch, yeah.
That's interesting.
Was it Mark, right?
Yeah. Out of Buffalo, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Great guy, sat down there. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time. He wanted to show us a second location that was down the street. But
you went out to Buffalo for it?
Yeah, we drove out to Buffalo. Oh, that's another thing. Like we travel. So anytime we travel, we try to find breweries nearby and or businesses, that would be willing to sit down with us. So
cool.
We've gone to New Orleans. We interviewed
Urban South.
Nice. That's awesome.
And then she gave
They're
us
huge. They're a huge operation.
Yeah. She gave us a tour, so that was very nice. And then where else did we travel? We went to Pennsylvania. We did Ya Brewery.
YAH Brewery. Yep.
Yeah. So when we travel, we try to also
have beer will travel as well.
Yeah. That's cool. That'd probably be a killer show just by itself, just going around different. I mean, I don't know if it exists, and like a longer form YouTube series of like, hey, we're like brewery specific.
There you go. Thank you for the offer. Well, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But
I would listen. With Thirsty Neighbor that we're starting. Like, I'm trying to build up content now. We'll talk off the air about beer content from it. But there's like I was just watching farm videos before you guys got here of like this YouTube channel. They just travel the country and go interview like 40-minute episodes.
I have this idea I haven't told Frank yet, but I'd love.
I don't want to interrupt you, but you're talking about farm. Now he has an idea. All I think it's going to be is me filming and him with animals.
No.
So I don't know what kind of idea this is.
See, I never know where his mind goes.
Well, I don't know where it goes either.
I said this to my wife, and she's like, "You're crazy," but I was thinking about doing a documentary.
That's cool.
About farm animals?
No, breweries.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Why not?
Yeah, hell yeah, that'd be awesome.
You know, like I said, I geek out with equipment. I like cameras.
I know.
And I love creating stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so
I feel much better about that, buddy.
don't worry.
I mean, I wouldn't have said no to you because I'm a team player, but like,
That's hilarious.
But it'd be cool to do a documentary, maybe something where we pack all our gear and cross country. I don't know, reach out to multiple breweries and be like, "Hey, we shooting a documentary. Would you like to be in it?"
Yeah,
and that's really the biggest problem. I don't know. You know, you've been 6 years into this or so for the
not
the podcast side.
Oh, the podcast, yeah.
So, but we have a huge challenge with scheduling. So it's hard to hear back from people, and some you just don't hear back from. Like, just tell us no. It's okay to say no, but you don't hear back. And then one time, I think last week or whatever, 2 weeks ago, we had 3 people all in one day.
Oh yeah,
just trying to bust it out. But like, you know, it's very. And I don't blame anybody. It is what it is. It's just, it's tough for us because we got full-time jobs.
Yeah.
And then we've got jobs on top of those full-time jobs. And then we got the podcast.
Yeah.
So it's tough to schedule. So we ideally, I think, like to be able to do this full-time, something like you do with your other piece, you know.
Yeah.
But who knows if it's going to happen. But it'd be a little bit easier, I think, if we could sort of just focus on that. But, you know, here we are. So
yeah. I try. I mean, I go in like waves of how I book the podcasts. Like today, I've got South Hill Cider coming up at right after this. And they're like, they just text me last week, "Hey, we've got this festival coming up. Can we get on the podcast?" And they're going to come in today, and I have to release it tomorrow. You know, so so there's something like that. And then I've got I've got 2 that I'm doing on Monday. You know, but then sometimes I'll just do like one a week and then just release them every single week. There's been times where I've tried to cram like 6 into a day. I was on a podcast. I was on a podcast for a girl locally who she recorded from like January to March, 52 episodes with guests that are all over an hour. But now she's done with her content for the year, you know? So,
so she'll just release them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I see.
The only thing I don't like about that is like I was a guest in March and my episode's going to come out in August. And I'm like, I'm a completely fucking different person, you know, by the time that this comes out. So yeah, but anyways, you know, so you go in different spurts. I tried to do restaurants across America. I was going to interview a restaurant owner from all 50 states and just do it remotely. And I did a couple of them, but the technical side of editing them, I would record them via Zoom. They would zoom in and just record it that way. But you know, if you just do a Zoom podcast, I don't know, it just feels like the view, like they don't do that well. So I tried to film it where I had a camera over my shoulder filming the computer screen, the computer itself, and I had a camera over there filming me, and then I would just cut back and forth, and then I used the Zoom call for their audio. And I still used all this stuff, but Zoom adds like a millisecond to every time a person speaks, it adds a millisecond for some reason. And I couldn't get everything to just perfectly sync up. So I had to manually go in, because if you started at the beginning of the episode, the person was talking, it looked normal. 30 minutes in, it looked like it was a foreign film, bad overdub. You know, it was completely off.
So it's like shooting a bullet. You're off this far from where it goes out, but over 50 feet, you're going to be off.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but you couldn't just set it in the beginning and then have it learn. I had to go through every time they would talk and then edit those milliseconds every single. So it would take me, one episode took me 10 hours to edit for just a 30-minute podcast.
And of course, you're fucking wasted after that because you're just drinking the whole time trying to deal.
I was sitting there like, why the fuck did I ever do this? It was the dumbest fucking idea. So I think I finally figured it out where that doesn't happen. So I'm gonna try and do those again. But I think a documentary across the country for beer to talk about, because not too many people that I know of are comfortable with talking about how much craft beer sucks right now. You know, like I don't know of a craft brewery that's doing well. Every craft brewery that I know in our area is suffering massively. And the ones that aren't suffering as bad as others, it's because they're really known as a restaurant first or an event space and not as a craft brewery. But if you exist as just, I make my own craft beer and I sell it to you in my tap room, you're fucked.
Right.
There is a 0% chance that you're going to succeed ever in your life if all you're doing is making beer and selling it.
Well, and this is investing. You know,
Yeah.
you diversify your portfolio. Like you've got all these different sorts of things you try out. We're trying to do different people, but like you said, a brewery, you have food, you can sell it.
Yeah.
And so these breweries aren't doing well. It's not because their product is bad.
Right.
It's because the environment economically is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of things. I think it's the economy. And I've been talking about when is the recession going to hit since before COVID. And restaurants, I'm just now in Syracuse hearing restaurant owners say the economy is bad. They've never said that even for the past like 4 years. They blamed COVID, like that kind of stuff, even though I think COVID was the best thing that ever happened to some of these restaurants. Because they got so much fucking money.
It worked out good for Angry Garlic.
Yeah.
At the beginning, I mean, I can't speak to the revenue piece of it.
Yeah.
But I know when we talked to Jeff Rogers, he was saying how they had these sort of people you mentioned earlier. People were coming and getting stuff for pickup.
Yeah.
But then he'd have the band. He'd have a band play outside.
Yeah,
and people
right.
were now started to set up chairs outside the restaurant.
Yeah.
So there was some good things about it. I don't know financially how people
Right.
made it through that
Yeah.
piece.
There's definitely some stories of restaurant owners who took their PPP money and built their deck, did the addition on their home, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There are some restaurants like Three Lives in downtown opened up during the pandemic, so didn't have the year to qualify for PPP, so he was fucked.
Yep.
But today I'm hearing some restaurant owners for the first time ever, they've always blamed something else. Today they're finally blaming like the economy as to why they're not busy. But there's a lot of fucking restaurants that are on like a month away from closing here in just our community.
I think part of the struggle with restaurants is also the workforce. It is very difficult to get workers. And I often scratch my head and like, what are people doing for money? Like,
Yeah.
where are you earning money if it's so difficult to get people to work?
OnlyFans.
No, damn it.
Only Frank's.
They're definitely not podcasting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you talk to as a business owner, I've struggled to hire, get help. I've talked to restaurant owners, and some of them they just can't get people to show up.
Yeah.
Or if
For sure.
they show up, they're coming in late, an hour, 2 hours
Would you think
late.
it's generational?
And I think part of it has to be generational because of what they are exposed to, like what they think the norm is.
Yeah.
The work ethics in different age groups is really, it's dramatic enough where you can tell the difference.
Yeah.
I grew up, you have to work, don't complain, do well, that's going to be recognized and you'll do well. Where I think nowadays, if you tell a kid, clean up, and you're like, well, you're not paying me to clean up. I'm not cleaning up,
But I don't know if I blame the kid for that.
No, I'm not
I
saying.
don't know where that starts, where that issue is.
I'm not saying it's
Right.
the kid. I said it's the time they grew up in that has normalized this kind of thinking and behavior.
I don't know what generation that was. I mean, my wife and I are, I'm 37, she's 34, and like our son's only 18 months old. So I don't know what generation it was that was raising. Well, I guess I do know, but that was raising kids to like fall into that mindset. But it is true. I mean, we just had Taste of Syracuse. I had 2 girls who I hired. I couldn't find anybody to work for me for $18 an hour cash under the table. Unless the IRS is listening to this. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, they have to pay taxes.
Never
not
heard of
you.
you.
But paying them $18 an hour cash plus limited tips. But I found 2 girls for $22 an hour. And so it's a lot of money. I paid $1,200 out over 2 days of work. nowadays for restaurants specifically, the cost of finding labor is crazy. Food costs are rising for sure. I mean, bird flu is definitely affecting prices on poultry. Beef prices are through the roof. Bird flu is now jumping to humans, in America right now, into farmers. So who knows how that's going to affect things. So there's definitely rising food costs for some stuff, but the margins are still crazy. The one thing I'll say that I'm noticing in our immediate area for food is the places who went out and took $1 million loan or found an investor or a partner and tried to build some mega restaurant where they need 30 people to staff it, they're all failing. But I'm seeing like younger chefs, not necessarily young in age, but just like the younger generation, like the generation who hasn't spent 30 years line cooking. They're coming up and they're renting places in the worst fucking neighborhoods, or getting the food truck that's like barely hobbling along, but they're coming out, they're making good food, and they're doing it as cheaply as possible. They're not saying, all right, let's go to the bank and get the $500,000. We need to open a restaurant. They're like, hey, I've got $3,000 saved up. How can I get a stove? Where can I go make food with $3,000? And they're different. They're off the beaten path. It's not easy to go. It's not accessible to go get their food. But they're doing it and they're trying it, and they're probably going to succeed because their overhead's so low. So that's really interesting to me. Like that's, I think, kind of like the new wave in Syracuse, at least, that will, in probably 4 or 5 years, we'll see those people own restaurants, And
they're willing to put in the effort. I mean, it's not some of these people you see now come out and they just want to, I just graduated from college. I want $100,000. It doesn't, I guess, in the right industry that works, but the majority of it doesn't.
Right.
They think you're owed something. Maybe this person you're talking about that was talking to their boyfriend, they think that they just are entitled to that.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. But I'm hoping that the gap we're talking about with finding good workers versus not good workers, or these people you're mentioning now, it's a smaller gap where, you kind of had this where we were at when we started, and then there's maybe a 4 or 5 year sort of generational.
Yeah.
Maybe the person you hired for $22 an hour.
Yeah.
But then the people you have coming up will kind of, fill that, because it's ugly, and it could be very ugly for a lot of people.
I try to teach my son, like, look, I want you to prepare for the real world, because the reality out there outside of school or education can be brutal. You could work hard for something, and your hard work might not be appreciated, or your hard work might not be as profitable, and you're going to think, well, I work hard. Like everybody told me, you work hard, you succeed, and I work hard and nothing happened. And I said, and that's part of it. You could work really hard towards the idea that nobody going to like, and that's part of it. So use that as you learn from it. Well, maybe I worked hard, but I did not do it right. You could do something, you could work really hard and do something wrong, right? So it doesn't mean just because you work hard that it automatically is rewarded.
Or maybe the right people didn't see it.
Yeah.
Well, again, that's true. So I try to always tell him, like, look, failure, and he's 12 and he has this interesting question. He goes, how do we go from like Stone Age to flying airplanes? I said, through a lot of failure.
Yeah.
We learn because people make mistakes so that we could learn from them.
Yeah.
Nobody came here and said, hey, this is how you build an airplane. Go ahead, build it. No mistakes, no issues, no problem. No, there are mistakes where people's lives are.
I mean, fuck, Boeing, we're still having mistakes.
Yeah. So, you have extra parachutes now on the planes. But,
not that there's anything wrong with Boeing. We love Boeing as a company, and we wish them nothing but success.
It was just a fact I was stating. I heard from a friend. A friend told me there were some issues.
Yeah.
Allegedly, there were some issues.
Yeah, just use that word. So I think that is important. I think we need to teach our kids so that we don't have this continued generation of expectations.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm hoping, so being in real estate for 8 years now, I see how real estate market is changing, and I'm hoping that Syracuse economy will change forever once Micron officially established, because I think they're going to be a big gate that will open.
For sure.
They are, thousands of predicted residents will be moving in here. This is where I think restaurants could now thrive. If there are any restaurant who's struggling, if you could, hold on a little longer.
3 or 4 years probably,
Hope that, well, they're already, Micron's already hiring and bringing people over here. So the population will gradually grow. It's not like 60,000 people just going to drop in Syracuse. But I wish all those restaurants and small businesses luck and success.
Yeah.
Because I think we will thrive if they're all successful as well.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Elon Musk this is the basis of all of my knowledge and understanding is the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe.
He was saying on his last episode there's like 4 or 5 ancillary jobs to every factory job: teacher, healthcare worker, mechanic, restaurant worker, whatever the case is. So if Micron is bringing in 60,000 people, how many hundreds of thousands have to come in to support those 60,000 people in other areas? Yeah, that'll be phenomenal if that happens. As a person who is a massive, I'm very interested in. It's hard for me to separate my critical, because I'm an asshole, mentality of and like business idea and business decisions that I see in the restaurant industry from a new restaurant opened. Like I see something open, I'm like, that's a fucking terrible area. Their food sucks. Like I saw the menu, the food sucks. Or the analogy I've used is, if restaurants are like all musicians, all different types of bands, it feels like there's a lot of pop bands, and you see somebody new come up and it's like, oh, this might be something different. But, and they kind of say, hey, no, we're grunge. But then, you're a pop band, So it's hard for me to not criticize the area. I think it's just the stage of life I'm in that I criticize our area a lot when it comes to
and you get expertise in it also.
I don't know if that...
or experience, anyway.
Yeah, I'd like to use that as my cop-out, but I think at the end of the day, I'm just a prick right now in my life.
Are you good at that?
I am very good at that. Right. Yeah, I am very good at being an asshole, for sure. So, yeah, I think that there's definitely... there's Syracuse, in my opinion, is going through like a series of growing pains right now. And I don't know if it's the fact that I don't know its identity or if Syracuse doesn't know its identity. I remember I like last year or the year before, I sort of reconnected with a lot of my old high school friends that still live in the area. In high school, we used to just always play poker all the time. Golf, play poker, drink Labatt Blue, whatever. And so I reconnected with them. I went over there to a poker game in the middle of winter, and they're all just talking about bowling and gambling and sports and poker, right? And I was just sitting there thinking to myself, I wonder what other communities in the country where this is exactly what people do.
Right.
Like what other communities in America, is there just a whole world, like a whole community of people where like it's a Friday night, it's midnight, there's probably like a large number of homes that are hosting a cash poker game right now with 7 guys talking about their bowling scores and, fuck the Celtics and,
I used to live in Boston. Right. It's funny you said fuck the Celtics. This is what I was talking about, how like it connects. But I used to live in Boston, and I have a friend who's an electrician, and every Friday, end of the week, work week, we go over there at night. We bring food, cash.
Yeah.
We play poker. We started a salt water fish tank.
Okay.
In his basement. So the day starts with 4 or 5 or 6 grown-ass men sitting there and looking at all the little live bacteria that we see, And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with us? We just spend an hour staring at this fish tank. And then it transitions from there to food, and then let's get the poker game going, And then there's like a soccer game playing in the background or whatever. Yeah. And then sun comes up, you're like, shit, I got to go home.
Yeah, I had last year. I had one 5 a.m. arrival back home from playing poker, and I thought my wife was going to kill me. Mm-hmm. It was daylight saving, so it was like, I thought it was going to be good, and then
it was. I thought it was going to be on 4. Sorry, it's 5. Like really,
you can't use daylight savings 10 times a year.
But to tie things back in, so this bird flu you're talking about, that could be good for either the porn industry or Roman because you get a bigger cock.
Oh, if that's what bird flu does, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to do this documentary across the country, we can look for the farm animals and we'll see. We could do it. Never mind. I can't. It'll be a surprise.
The documentary, I think, would be really cool because, I mean, I feel it would be really interesting to see what the status of the brewery industry is around the country. I mean, there's breweries all across the country that are closing all the time, you know, and obviously, you know, just like there is anything else. But, you know, there are a lot of craft breweries that are closing. And I'm curious, I wonder, like, which ones are really making it.
And why.
Yeah.
We mentioned this on our podcast. Every few months or so, I read an article where this brewery and this brewery are merging, and I think they're merging to survive.
Yeah.
And what's happening, either those breweries are, you know, making right business decisions, and they're like, okay, in order for us to stay alive, we have to merge.
Yeah.
I mean, even Anchor closed. I mean, after what, 125, 27 years
Right.
Yeah.
in business, you know,
Yeah.
they're being affected. You would think like a larger company have everything down, right? Like they shouldn't struggle.
Yeah.
But I believe, did the owners buy it? Like, did the workers buy it or something?
Yeah, so they were doing an employee, they were looking at that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happened, but there may be some other investor that's coming in. I mean, yeah, think about it. I mean, they were probably marketed wrong or whatever the case may be. They have everything in place. The technology can change for efficiency.
Yeah.
But the process is always the same.
Right.
You know, so it really, if you have someone come in, if you have deep pockets, you know, you're not spending deep pockets on it.
Right.
You're buying pennies on the dollar to save some sort of people losing all this money. And you get to save the workers, hopefully.
Yeah.
So, you know, if someone can come in and do that and be under the umbrella of some other operation and then maybe jump in bed with you know, we talked with the Brew Brothers. They talked about a couple of people that invested in this sort of investment group that bought into 3 other things.
Sure.
So now they all get the buying power and the distribution and the marketability. So I think that's the way it's going to go, and it's not limited just to breweries.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, there's big restaurant groups there's a big one in Utica of all things. I mean, not massive, but they own a lot of the restaurants in Utica.
Great food in Utica, by the way.
Utica's got a great food scene. I would put Utica in like top 5, top 4 in New York State. Top 5 in New York State for sure. Above Syracuse, in my opinion. But yeah, so I mean, it should be the same thing. Like you have to follow a lot of trends in craft beer. Unfortunately, it's, you know, and I'm sure that there's plenty of small communities out there that exist across the country where it's like, hey, we've got like our craft brewery and they still make the old school styles and they're not trying to make every hazy and sour that they can. And that's cool because you fit you fill your purpose. But I think it's the same thing with restaurants. Like if you're a craft, and really a lot of different like coffee shops are the same. You have to decide when you're opening up a food business, are you trying, like how much money are you trying to make, first of all, and how big are you trying to be? Because, you know, a lot of the restaurants today, you either have to be huge and you're just kind of lucky. I think of like Bull and Bear, you know, 3 locations, and I don't know their financial success, but they seem to be doing pretty well. But those aren't owner-operator, right? You know, so each location's probably got 30 employees. And they can do it. But I think for a lot of places to succeed today, I think of like Buried Acorn. It's Tim and Crystal. You go in there, and 80% of the time you're seeing Tim or Crystal there behind the bar making your food. Sometimes you see Charlie there. Sometimes I know they did just hire like another person, but the most part you're seeing Tim and Crystal there. You know, I met a friend opened up a coffee shop, and she was like, "Oh, it's just, you know, I thought I was going to do so well," and I'm like, "Well, you put your coffee shop in an area that's like the area you go to retire and own a coffee shop. Right. Like, you know, you're the person that's doing everything. You can't go in there and make $1 million. You can go in there and like make a couple $100,000, pay yourself, you know, 60, 70 a year and be happy, but you have to be the person that's doing
it. That's
right. I think as a business owner too, I had to do a research. Well, I started as apprentice in, you know, construction and kind of worked my way up. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to do my own thing. Same with real estate. I thought, okay, real estate is great. People always need a roof over their heads, right? So I'll get into real estate, and then the two kind of work together. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, why not do construction, real estate together, and then work with investors who want to invest in real estate. But if I wanted to open a restaurant, I would have to do an extensive research,
Yeah.
collect data, and figure out, because you opening a coffee shop, are you expecting to be a millionaire if you open? Like, what are your expectations?
Yeah.
I have a friend who started a business, and he was like, I want to be successful. I said, well, hold
Everybody
on.
wants to be successful.
I said, hold on a second. Well, what's your level of success?
Right.
Everyone's level of success is different.
Right.
You see rich people, they might look to you successful, but they're competing with another rich person, and their success levels change
Yeah.
because they're just competing. I don't know if they're unhappy or they just need more,
Right.
right? Once you find what your success level is I think where your happiness is going to come in too, because you're not worried constantly about like, I need to be above this,
Yeah.
I need to do better than that place does.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like my success is to be financially comfortable and have time with family, and life is short. I want to see the world. I want
Yeah.
to travel. I want to spend time with friends, and I want to do cool things like this.
Right.
So you opening a coffee shop, you got to set expectations. What's going to be your level of success?
Yeah.
What are you looking to get out of this? And is this the kind of work you're willing to put in and be satisfied with what you get back?
Yeah. I think, my wife always tells me that I'm crazy. I'm constantly asking her if we can move to Boonville, which is where she's from, which is a tiny little town, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's move back to Boonville. And she's always like, there is a 0% chance that you could take living in Boonville.
But you'd be close to Keith.
I would be close to Keith. Yeah.
Can I be close to the bathroom?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. We'll talk about you while you're gone. Yeah. I'm like, she's like, there's a 0% chance that you could do it with everything that I do of just being so active on social and technology. And I'm like, I would love to get away from all of this, love to get away from all of it.
You're looking for like more of a remote location and do things remotely. I mean, you travel. Yeah. I watch your videos. You travel, to different places far away. You would try to. Excuse me. I think one of your biggest recent trips was in New York City.
I was in New York in February, I think.
Okay, that must have been what I saw last.
Yeah. Yeah.
You probably gone somewhere else in between.
Yeah, I was in Buffalo a month or two ago. I was in Rochester last week. I was in Corning, or 2 weeks ago. I was in Corning last week. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found that for me to be successful through the social media stuff, I have to get out of Syracuse. Mm-hmm. I just have to,
And moving here from Boston, my wife and I met there, but she grew up here, and I looked at the lifestyle here. I'm like, I like this more calmer lifestyle.
Yeah.
Boston is just chaos. It's fast paced. You're dealing with traffics. You're dealing with assholes. It's almost impossible to drive there. Public transportation is the best way to get around, and it's just nonstop. It's expensive to live there. So when I moved here, I was like, it's almost like I took a deep breath and I was like, oh man, I can just relax for a little bit,
Yeah.
Kind of catch up with my thoughts, figure out how I want to do things. And then I was like, how difficult it is to get in the car and just go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
It's not that difficult. If you don't mind driving, it's fine. So I looked at where we are on the map. Within 6-hour radius, you can hit a lot of major cities.
Anything you want.
Canada, I mean, the entire Northeast,
Right.
pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Within 6 hours. And I was like, we have no natural disasters here.
I know.
There's no droughts. We got plenty of lakes, rivers, ocean access, Great Lakes.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the lifestyle here. Yeah, taxes are high,
Yeah. I gotta follow Frank's lead and go run to the restroom.
I could have put a small fire out with that thing. Boy.
It's on you guys. Talk about whatever you want.
All right, good. He's gone. What can we steal? What's he got here? Any good shit?
I finished my beer. Did you finish both of yours?
I finished. I'm a pro.
No wonder you had to take a piss.
I don't know what happened there. I was just sitting there itching. I'm like, I hope they don't see me touch my
Put a
pee
crack
on
on his
camera.
porcelain.
No, I pressure washed his toilet for sure. Yeah. But I'm gonna send him a bill. For what? For pressure washing his toilet. It's
I I'm trying to not to hit this thing with my leg. I hit it earlier, and I fucking fell.
I saw it. It was like a dwarfism.
Yeah.
So are you done with that beer?
No, fuck off.
I was going to take... Man.
I thought you were going to take it.
No. Man,
You have more?
You have bird flu on the brain.
On my brain?
On your brain. Yeah, it's... I had to go bad, so sorry, everybody, for that. But you're welcome that I did it in the toilet, not here.
You didn't wear your diapers?
I should.
What are you drinking there?
This is a... We've had this, right? From Big Ditch. No... Oh, shit.
No, we didn't.
Punts.
We didn't have that.
We only got one at home, so...
Just swipe it off the table.
I'm gonna, after I lick it. Because I lick it. Do you... I was just going to tell a joke about a lesbian dinosaur if you want to hear that. Because I was saying lick it, and I'm like, what do you call a lesbian dinosaur?
What?
Lick-a-lotopus?
Yeah. There's a...
Sorry.
Have you ever heard it? There's a great book. It's a Christian book, but it's called Wild at Heart by that author named John Elbridge. And it's a really, really great book. And then his wife actually wrote like the feminine version of it for women.
Is there a movie about this or no?
There may have been like kind of
Yep.
cheap movie that was made about it. It's a really phenomenal book. And but there was this guy I used to listen to. I grew up in like Christianity, right? And
Did you grow up? Sorry to interrupt you. Did you grow up around here in Syracuse?
Yeah. So from birth to 13, we lived in northern Kentucky, right on the Cincinnati border. And then moved here when I was a freshman in high school because my dad's from here. My mom's from Kentucky. So we moved here when I was 13. I spent high school here, and then I moved to Ohio. I moved back here for a couple of years. Then I moved to Texas, and then I moved back, and then I was in California for like a month, and then I was back here.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah. But there was this guy, this podcast I used to listen to, and he wrote some books. He's a pastor out in Redding, California. He has an interesting story where like his wife, married, couple kids, pastor at a church, wife is a pastor at the church, right? All this stuff. His wife shows up one day at his doorstep with his best friend and says, "I don't love you. I love your best friend," and runs off with the best friend.
Wow.
And so he actually wrote a book just about experiencing that and like trying to get to a point of like forgiving them and moving on and all that kind of stuff. But he, his kind of perspective on manhood is he's like, I've noticed that when I'm at the grocery store and I'm like, man, that woman over there is hot. He starts thinking of like infidel or whatever the case is. He's like, I realize I haven't been hunting in a while. I haven't gone on a fishing trip. I haven't gone hiking. I haven't had anything in any adventure in my life to, like kind of keep me centered essentially. And I think
the outdoors does that for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that's like as I get older, that's part of the stuff that I kind of notice. It's like when you start to get wonky, it's just because like, all right, well, I've been in my fucking car, or driving back and forth throughout a downtown area, dealing with traffic, dealing with just the bullshit in life, that doesn't matter. Like, oh shit, how many views did my podcast get this week?
Okay.
Who the fuck cares at the end of the day,
And that's where we are, yeah.
All right. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's fun and it's like there's a goal and there's tons of stuff about like, hey, listen, somebody watched your podcast and went to that restaurant and that restaurant needed the help and that's wonderful. But there is something about like trying to not be so stuck into that whole technology world, that world of technology where it's like these things don't really matter at the end of the day,
It's hard to disconnect because everything's so readily available now.
Right.
I mean, when we were younger, there was no Facebook, Instagram. There was none of these social media things. There wasn't even smartphones when I was younger.
Right.
I mean, what the fuck? So now you can get your work email, you can get all this stuff on there, and it's tough. But you as a responsible adult, you got an 18-month-old and your wife, and you got responsibilities. You think about it, and it's not unique to us. We're all doing it, but there are people that are better than us at being able to disconnect from that.
Yeah.
I would hope to be there at some point, but I'm always, my mind's always running. Roman says, like, I don't know where he's going. Like, shit, it's just in my head and it pops out. Like, I don't know either, but I don't necessarily like that, but that's the way I am right now.
I look at social media as a tool.
Yeah.
So I don't have personal social media accounts. I refuse. I've had it before. I'm like, why did I fucking waste my time on this?
Yeah.
You know, and I've been always against being on social media. And my friends are like, oh, you know, you were talking about not being on social media. Now you're on social media. I'm like, no, Brews and Banter is on social media. I don't have social accounts. It's kind of like a hobby and a job now. So yeah, I'm going to use the tools that will benefit me. But I refuse to be on there. And like you were saying earlier, you know, that guy went hunting, hiking, or whatever. In the wintertime, I go with a friend of mine almost every year, would go deep in the woods up in Adirondacks, and we just hike.
Yeah.
You know, we find a lean-to, find nice areas by the lake, and it's just a totally different life in the winter.
Yeah.
Being in the woods. Then we go hike in the summertime with friends. We go camping. I go hunt just actually north of Boonville.
Oh, nice.
I go hunt in Turin.
We got a buddy
Yeah,
in
for sure.
Boonville, right?
Yeah,
we got
north of
Boonville. We have a
Turin.
buddy up there.
Yeah. So he went to school with Frank, and I became
He
friends.
used to own Lock 24 restaurant. in Beaver.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I became friends with him as well. He lets me hunt on his land, and now I bring my son with me, and he comes hunting with me.
awesome.
And it's just, there are days where I go in the woods with my bow. When it's bow season, I do rifle as well, but I feel like bow is better.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's more challenging. It's fair.
It's more primitive.
Yeah.
You wear a loincloth and you're
Yeah.
got tattoos on your nipples and shit.
Yep. I got to blend in. So, and yeah, I just sit there, and I might not see deer that day, or might not be close enough to shoot it. But I just hear how the forest wakes up in the morning and see different animals.
Yeah.
I even had an encounter with a fisher. I was like, man, you better not come close to me, because that little animal will fuck you up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But even aside from your encounters with that, it's your time with your son.
Yeah,
Yeah.
time with my son,
Yeah.
like to share that time with him, for sure.
You have a son or daughter?
Son. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He's 18 months. He's just starting to really get his personality over the last few months. One of the things that I like, I love traveling. Like, there's nothing, to me, put me in a car on a cross-country road trip with I don't smoke anymore, but give me a pack of cigarettes and Diet Coke and some music, and I'm set. I could be happier than ever. But there's still something about once you have a child, that incredible desire. If I would travel before our son, I would still miss my wife, but there's nothing like having a kid at home that you're not with. It's
painful.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It really is.
Imagine these soldiers, these people in our armed forces, like
I can't imagine.
they're deployed for months, or they miss a birth. Like, I can't imagine what that's like. I know it's painful for me to think of it, but I don't know what it's like to actually have to deal with it.
Yeah. And now they're bringing. Well, I think that's always been selective services. Has been. I mean, I remember when I was 18 in high school, I had to sign up for selective service, and so I think that's always been a thing. But now they're like kind of really pushing selective service again right now. So
yeah, they may do that. But I'm this sort of I say we did ancestry DNA, and I'm like, oh, fucking 2% Scandinavian, so I'm like, no, I'm a Viking, whatever. Yeah. But like, you want to see me cry? Play those fucking videos of the soldiers surprising their kids or the family. It's like I'm a little fucking schoolgirl. I'm like, period.
I was at my parents' house this past weekend. My sister was in town. My son is on my lap. I'm holding my son, and I get a notification from my iPhone. Watch a slideshow of Anthony over the last year. And I pull it up, and it's like these pictures of my son from when he was born to today, all the pictures that I've taken of him on my phone with a sad song. And next thing I know, I'm like wiping tears.
Why can't they make it a happy song? Why is it going to be sad? It's like some gangster rap or something. I don't fucking know. Like, you got to do this like sad song.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so. I mean, I was away. I worked 2 days when we did Wingfest, and with the restaurant. And I mean, I still saw him every morning and FaceTime before he went to bed at night. And even still, the next day I get home Sunday and I'm like, he's walking better. He's talking more. He looks different. I mean, it's pretty wild to see, how quickly those changes occur.
My son is 12 years old now, and he's going to be going to a summer camp for a week. And in 12 years, there's going to be our first time. My wife and I just talked about this morning, or last night. It's our first time being away from him for that long.
Wow.
Like we've never been away, and we love traveling.
Yeah.
We travel together. Yeah.
We travel together.
Not me, him, and his wife. Me, my wife, and him.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
Our families.
Just to clarify.
Yeah.
But we always bring him with us, and we have some friends are like, they want to go out for dinner and not bring their kid. We're like, I want to bring my kid.
Yeah.
He's gonna go to college in no time. Right. That time's gonna fly by.
My
so
daughter's
quick.
almost there.
Yeah.
And then he's not gonna have time for me. So I want to take this opportunity and spend as much time with him as we can. So my wife and I take him to dinners, friend gatherings.
He's been at the podcast.
It's been podcast.
Yeah.
He, travel with him. We did. My wife. I did a surprise birthday trip for my wife, and everybody's like, "Oh, is your son going with you?" I'm like, "Of course."
Yeah.
So we went on a fun tropical location, and he till this day talks about the trip. Like this is the kind of experience I want him to have.
Is it your only child?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So that child's going away for a week.
Yeah.
In 9 months, that child's not going to be an only child.
Right.
Maybe shortly less. I'm not really sure.
We just got a new puppy, so we're gonna be busy with that one.
Frank, do you used to have the one?
Just one daughter. Yeah, she's in high school. She's getting ready to go to college here, in another year or so. But by design, it's just really what we wanted. But
that's what we're planning too. I mean, I don't know. I grew up with, I'm one of four. And,
all boys?
No, my sister's the oldest, and then 3 boys. But my one brother, they have 4, all close together. My other brother, he has 3, and
local.
No, one's down near New York City in like Rockland County. The other one's in Cincinnati, and then my sister's out in Nashville.
That's okay then.
Yeah,
good food there.
Yeah, good food there. Yeah, but I always assumed I would have more than one, and having our son, I'm like, how the hell do people do it with multiple? But I'm also, and we're only going to have our one, but unless there's an accident. But I want to have a second only for the fact that, like, I know the stuff I've dealt with in life, even with our parents, like, they're happy, healthy today, but even health scares over the years, I couldn't imagine going through that and being an only child. Going through like navigating life as an adult is without having a sibling that you're close to really be able to talk to and pull on. We don't talk every single day, but there's no closer relationship than I have with my family, with my siblings. I couldn't imagine being an only child out there.
But outside family would help that. You're close to all your brother's kids and your sister,
sure.
All these things.
Yeah.
So, that's okay. And we did it because I couldn't imagine loving something more than I love my daughter.
That's what my wife
So how do you
says,
share that? Like people do it, and I realize it can happen, but I'm like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
So now I got a dog with no balls because he got fixed. So that's kind of supposed to be a boy, but it's really like another girl. So now I'm in a house full of girls. I really just, what happens if I have another kid and they're triplets? I got 3 more girls. What the fuck am I going to do?
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I have 3 dogs and a son, so we're good. We tried, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I'm one of 4 too.
Okay.
But I have all
I'm one
brothers.
of 3. Yeah,
I have
3
all
boys.
brothers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my poor mother. But yeah, my older brother's got 3 kids, and my youngest is gonna have his first biological.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a crazy experience.
Yep.
I mean, walking in to the delivery room, she had a C-section, and walking into that delivery room was one of the scariest moments of my life. Seeing my wife like in the crucifix position. On this
is Rashonda.
Yeah,
whatever you want to call
Rashonda. Yeah.
What's her name? Rebecca.
Rebecca. Yeah. But Tim and Keith call her a different R word every time. They never call her Rebecca.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say Rebecca, and they're like, "Who the hell are you talking about?" And then when they pulled my son out of her, I'm like, I don't know which one to like. Who do I protect?
Right.
Yeah.
So I couldn't imagine doing that, like having that feeling with multiple kids.
But it's beautiful, really.
Yeah,
the whole family thing. So it's tough to navigate, and everybody does it.
Yeah.
But and we all like to share it.
That's another job outside of your normal job is your family.
Yeah.
And then we also put time in to do podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go,
Right?
these fucking jobs don't pay us. It's really weird. Monetarily, anyway. You know, like, emotionally, you get some payment, or mentally, like,
Yeah. But
where's the cheddar?
Yeah. But imagine one day your kids our kids being able to like go back and I mean, maybe it might be a bad thing. I don't know. 30 years being like, hey, remember when Dad had that like 100 episodes of the podcast out there?
Oh, yeah.
You know?
You want to like watch that? You know, like get some beers.
Binge watch.
Yeah.
Dad's podcast. Well, you learn a lot of slang from us, for sure. Yeah.
Man, Dad was an idiot.
Yeah. Still is.
I've thought about that with a couple guests I've had on the podcast where I get to sit down with these restaurant owners and for an hour figure out, like, learn their history, how they got into it, how they got started, you know, what was their life like growing up, how they got into food, all that kind of stuff. And I've thought about, like, man, their kids are going to have this hour-long conversation where their dad gets to detail the history of his dad was a baker, and that's how he got into being a baker, and talking about the stories of going, you know, when he was a kid and helping his dad, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So that kind of stuff's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's a lot of, like, the documentary you're talking about. You know, I know it's a different field, but my father-in-law is, you know, approaching 90.
Yeah.
My wife is full Italian. And we had gone to Italy, and you kind of do these things. You grew up in the mountains. It's this sort of weird, you know, you don't have a home with a foundation and a driveway. You got like a goat path and a rock, you know, like, but we sort of did this thing years ago. We kind of documented them on a little camcorder, just telling about how you did things. Like, that's going to be lost.
That's awesome.
So, you know, we talk about our kids being able to reflect on this, Dad's Need, but there's also some pretty cool shit they're going to be able to see also.
Hell yeah.
You know,
Sure. Yeah. Well, listen, guys, it was a lot of fun.
We appreciate it.
Tell everybody how they can find your podcast and listen to it and watch it.
Our podcast is on all the podcast streaming services. You can also go on our website, Brews, letter N, banter.com. Our episodes are also uploaded there as well. Our website is also a best source for everybody to contact us and let us know if they want to be a guest on the podcast. There's an option there to be, if you want to be a guest, just put in your name, email, and we'll get notified. Find us on social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, X, Twitter, whatever you call it.
YouTube, everything.
YouTube, yep. Our video episodes are now being uploaded on Spotify as well and YouTube.
Awesome.
And anything else?
No, we want to thank you, obviously, for having us, and it's great to meet you. It's the first time we had this hour and a half long thing. So, and this is what we like to do. You know, meet new people, and I hope you feel the same, and I hope you'll come see us at some point.
Yeah, for sure, man.
So we'll get an email tomorrow from you wanting to be a guest on us through the podcast, through the website. But we appreciate it for sure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, guys.